here for 23 years. And then we have two, Deputy Thompson and Deputy Dunning that have been here just over 7 years. So there's 4 total on staff. These guys the guys that I just mentioned do a great job during hours and covering after hours calls, working with the public, and then every other level of law enforcement with a wide variety of calls involving dogs. I just want to give an update on where we are as a department and key areas that we want to focus on in the next year. So our current numbers, as far as calls go, last year we handled just over 1,100 calls. About 250 of those were after hours calls. With those calls, we brought in 531 dogs. And that number, you look back 10 years ago and we were bringing in 1,200 to 1,300 dogs. So that number's dropped significantly. And then with those calls, we issued 534 warnings or citations for violations of licensing or confinement of dogs. Of those 531 dogs that we brought in, 183 were claimed, which is about 35%. The rest going to the Humane Association to be placed up for adoption. Our main revenue source for the department is obviously dog licensing. We bring in about $450,000 a year for dog licensing. That seems like a lot, but it's probably, as far as licensing of dogs in the county, we probably only have about 10% of the population, as far as human population. 10% of those have license for the dogs. So there's a lot of work to be done on that end. And that's one of our goals moving forward, is more marketing towards the sale of dog license. We've got, this year we'll have 62 locations that we are taking signage to, that they're not agents, but we'll have signage with QR codes for the convenience of scanning the QR code, being able to pull up the online registration for dogs. So we're hoping that helps out a lot. Now with that, we still do have over-the-counter sales with 24 agents throughout the county. There's some people that, still don't want to do the online stuff. Even though about 60% of our sales are online, we still do quite a bit of work with our agents and vendors on the dog license sales. So outside of that, we also plan to visit more schools as far as doing the vehicle days, things like that, to reach out to the younger kids coming up, to let them know exactly what we do as far as catching dogs, the traps that we use. We usually try not to take out like live dogs, but we have a stuffed animal that we take out that's got a microchip in it, so we show them how the microchip and the dog licensing helps in returning the dogs to the owners if they do get loose. So we want to focus more on the education to the public and the importance of dog licensing and confinement. So I open that up to any questions that you guys may have.
Thank you. What do you do about a dog who won't go outside and get lost?
Well, we like those kinds.
So what are the ramifications if you don't, so if I understand what you're saying is, you think that 90% of the dogs in Warren County do not have a dog license?
Well, when I say population, I'm just talking like population of people, so,
Okay, so you're saying that 90% of the people with dogs don't license their dogs?
I would say it's close to that.
Okay, so here's my question. When you find a dog and that is not licensed,
Yep.
and you find who the owner is, what happens?
So, we can cite that person, obviously, and we deal with 4 different courts, they're all different. You can be cited for failure to license, failure to, even if you have a license, the license is meant to be displayed on the collar, so you can also be cited for failure to display the license. But when we go out, I would much rather if that person, we give them an opportunity to
License
buy
the
the
dog,
license.
buy it then,
I
and
mean,
then
that's,
display it.
that's
You tell
what we
them
would rather see done.
Is that
rather
what
than-
you do?
We do.
Okay, all right, that's all I'm asking. I
and
just
we've-
wanted to know how you'd handle it.
I would rather you buy a license, and you can do it right now in front of me, online or in person. We have the tags in our vehicles, and then renew that license every year.
And they do have to be renewed every year?
Well, they do have an option online or with the auditor's office to buy a permanent tag or a 3-year tag.
Okay, and what are the tag costs?
$15 is for a regular tag.
For 1 year?
Yeah, 1
And
year,
what is it
3
for-
year,
what
3
is the
years,
infinite tag
$45.
cost?
And then a 10-year, if you buy it when they're young, it's $150. So you're looking at buying a tag for 10 years of the life.
Well, so you're not getting a break on this thing?
Yeah.
You're just conveniently not, having to
Well,
remember to do it?
for a permanent tag, you
Yeah,
would.
it's
If your
$5
dog,
a year.
your dog lived past 10 years, you would definitely.
Oh, okay. I thought it's $15.
So you're playing the,
It's
playing the
$15
odds.
a year. It's $15 a year. Yeah, you're assuming your dog is gonna live longer than 10
We
years.
hope
at that
so.
point, which is highly likely.
But it's always
Okay.
awful when you get the renewal and your dog is passed, and that's always sad.
Yeah, I can
That
imagine
happens.
that.
With the penalty.
Okay.
Oh, that you've
No,
passed. And
that
we
my
do
dog
send out
passed,
in the
and
le-
it
in the-
reminded me to renew my dog license.
In
I'm
the-
So the
like,
dog is dead and you're gonna go
In
after
the-
those people.
Well,
In
You
the
can
letters
license your
that we
dog.
do send out, we
It's sad.
send a note with, saying that,
I
if
know,
you've
but
not
it's still
renewed because
sad.
of this, we apologize.
But is
But-
the basic thing that we're getting with the dog license, because most of these animals are inside, they don't ever get out, but we're helping to fund your operations of dealing with stray dogs, dogs that are on the loose, dogs that are wild, et cetera, and helping to
Correct.
defray the cost of handling loose dogs.
Well, an ORC says that any dog over 3 months, whether it's, inside all the time or whatever, has to have a license.
No, I get that.
For that
But the point of the
But yes.
license is because there's a lot of dogs out there, and we have to spend money and time on people like you in helping to control these dogs. And there are some dangerous dogs
Right.
where they bite or you can't just let them interact with people because they might hurt people.
Right.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Do you
anything
guys still
else?
do the other type of animals, or is that mainly
I
sheriff?
don't.
You're-
So we just strictly handle dogs. The sheriff's office would, they've got jurisdiction over like livestock running loose, things like that. And then we do have a humane agent through the Humane Association now that does the
what
cruelty.
percentage of the budget is paid for by, your budget is paid for by fees?
So it actually varies year by year, so we lease space for them over at the Humane Society. And so last year, as an example, I don't think there was any general fund money that went into it because they had some carryover to pay for that lease and some of the salaries, so, and then they'll work that through the budget this year to see if there's anything it's,
So the idea is that the licenses fund the operation.
in a perfect world, and I think that's why they try to always sit there and increase increase user fees. But there's years that it goes back and forth where the commissioner's grants may have to give money to some of the lease and sometimes it doesn't. So it just varies from year to year on that.
Okay. and-
Thanks, Nathan.
Yeah, well, really appreciate it. You done.
No problem, thank you guys.
I have a question related to this. What are the fines associated with not having a license?
So all of our courts are different, and the fines
What's
they
the range?
set, so $100 to $150 for not having a license,
So you're 10% of,
and for
the
not
cost of
running.
the tag is 10% of the fine,
Right.
roughly.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you all.
So next we have a work session with building and zoning to consider text amendments or authorization to go into text amendments.
Good morning, Ray Dratt with Building and Zoning. Thanks everybody for being here. We'll talk today about some potential zoning text amendments, and we'll get started with that. So the amendments to the Warren County Rural Zoning Code, drafted by Planning and Zoning and reviewed by the Prosecutor's Office. Here's the review process. We're here today for a work session. If you guys choose to, through a resolution, do the initiation, we'll then move to the RPC Executive Committee, then to RZC, and then ultimately back to you for the ultimate approval or denial.
Jonathan, are you here for this? Are you-
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Summary of the proposed amendments. Number one, update public notification process to include online notifications. That's gonna save us a large amount of money. Updating the requirements for frontage lots to include a minimum depth. Clarify what constitutes a stacked panhandle. Exempt secondary dwelling unit from the accessory building count. Amend subdivision perimeter buffer requirements. And add a diagram to lot width definition. Under the public notification, this is what it's gonna impact. It's gonna notifications for site plan review, plan unit development, zoning amendments, and then other administrative appeals. In a black line is what we've taken out, red is new. So in that section, basically B and C, on the official public notice website established under ORC 125.182 or on the website social media account of the county. So we'll be able to advertise, instead of publishing it in the paper, now we can just put it on our website, and that will count as the official notification.
Before you proceed any
Yep.
longer, I just have a quick question
Yes, sir.
to our legal advisor. So in order to initiate the review of these types of changes, must we take action to have that done?
You must.
Okay.
Well, with one exception. It can be done by the zoning commission. However, I advise this department not to do that anymore. Because they were initiating some text amendments in the past that came to the commissioners. You didn't like them, you were voting them down. And I advise this department to start bringing all of these to you to see if you're on the same page before you go down that road of publications and so forth.
And do we need to go through the level of detail here where they
Yes.
actually go through each one?
Yes.
Okay, good. That's what
This
I wanted to
first
know.
one is just conforming with the Ohio Revised Code that was changed in terms of notification.
That's correct, but we still, on some of these requirements, we still post a sign on the property,
Right.
so the people that live in the area are driving by, they know it that way.
But that wasn't in the Ohio Revised Code, was it? We just did that by practice.
We did, yeah, we started, it's like the 500 feet, that's greater than the revised code. Some jurisdictions do greater, some of them comply and do less. But you're right, the change in the ORC allowed us to do this. And
Okay.
it'll save us lots of money. And
Nobody reads.
who reads a newspaper? Are there any newspapers?
No, they don't do it.
Well, we've also changed just for just some of your public notices that you have for different bids and things. We worked with Adam and now Crystal has a dedicated Facebook page specifically for this. So it's getting much more popular based off the change in ORC.
All right.
But we still mail to
If our code requires it, within 500 feet, the sign, to the applicant, of course, which they already know. But yeah, we still do those things, yes.
All right, continue, thank you.
Thank you. There's some changes to lot standards. On the left, at the very bottom, we now will include standards for a frontage lot and a lot of record. At the bottom, you can't really see it, but it's number 6 and 7.
There is a microphone over there.
All right. Here it is at the bottom of that. Number 6 is an addition. The minimum lot width shall be maintained to the minimum front yard setback line and for 50 feet beyond the front yard setback line. So if you're in a zone that has a 50-foot setback from the right-of-way, then you'll have to go back 50 feet plus 50, so that depth of that lot from the road right-of-way will now be required to be 100 feet.
Why?
Because there's kind of a loophole in the zoning code that some surveyors and others have figured out, that basically to get a frontage lot, you only have to meet whatever the required width is in the zoning code. For RU, over 2 acres, it's 200 feet of road frontage. But it doesn't cover the depth. So you could buy a 200-foot strip that's 5 feet deep, and that would constitute frontage.
Okay, I don't even understand that.
Okay.
So what is it right now? What is the
There is-
setback right now?
Well, when it comes to, there is nothing. There is a requirement for frontage, and that's it. So I can show
So
you a
you're
picture.
saying whatever the requirement is on frontage, it also has to be 50 feet deep?
Plus, it has to be the required setback, so there's either 40 feet, 50 feet, and that's the majority of them. So you'd have to go 40 feet plus 50, or if it's RU, 50 plus 50, and that's all done in that chart here. So what we're saying is that if you look, these are your different zoning codes, districts, and for front setback, RU, R1A, R1, it's 50 from the road right away. R1B is 40, R2 is 40, and R3 is 35. So if you're in R1B and you want to buy a frontage lot, then you would have to go back 40 feet from the road right away plus 50 feet. So your lot depth would have to be 90 feet from the road right away.
The lot depth, but not to the point where you're building.
The building would still be the same, but in reality, you wouldn't be able to build in that area.
So I don't understand what's going on here.
Okay.
Is the lot depth, so if somebody is has a piece of property and they're creating lots, what this is really telling you is the size of the lot and the depth of the lot that has to be created for a frontage lot. Is that right?
That is correct. So
Okay.
here, if you see, this is a perfect example of what we're trying to prevent. This was done a long time ago, but the distance, this is your road right away. This is what they would consider a lot frontage. So what they did is they went 200 feet this way, and then it's only 30 feet this way.
But you can't build anything on that.
Correct, but
So why would somebody want to create something they can't build on
Because
like
they're
that?
trying to connect the lot in the back to the
That's
frontage.
correct.
Okay, well, so now, explain that to me.
So
I mean,
what-
she picked up on this, but I didn't.
So this would be considered a panhandle if it had no frontage, right? Minimum of 20, maximum of 40. So this, and rather than do a panhandle and a panhandle, they simply created this and designated as a frontage lot because they knew that they could only go 200 feet this way, and there is no standard for this way. If we instituted a standard,
But who is that helping?
It's gonna-
Why would they do that?
they would do that because it's cheaper. obviously you'd have to purchase less land, but it creates issues with us and GIS trying to figure out where the lot line is, because sometimes
But whose lot is that?
It's just,
this
The-
guy
the
you
here.
can
top
see it
left.
better on here, you can see the
Which is
house.
it? Is this one here?
Yeah,
So,
in
so
the
what you're
blue,
saying is
that's-
by doing that, instead of having a panhandle that comes all the way out, all of a sudden it's a frontage lot and they could build additional buildings on that back lot as
Yes.
opposed to a
Yeah.
panhandle?
Yes.
So
You
that
can't
gets them,
stack panhandles.
Yes.
okay.
And this is a way to get around.
So that's what it is. If it's a panhandle lot, that it's just going like this, you can only put one building back there. But if you have a frontage lot, potentially you could put multiple buildings back there.
And why would we object to that?
Well, we don't have a standard, so when people come
No,
in.
why would we object to that? I now understand the problem, but why would we object to it?
Because sometimes they transfer the land, but not the frontage. So we have a hard time determining where the road frontage is, because if it's involved in the road right away, then it's hard for us to determine. If we had a standard that we could look at this particular lot, and then, so basically, what you would see is you would see a larger, so this would be the front yard setback for RU, this would be 50 feet, number one, plus 50. So this would be a 100 feet deep and 200 feet wide.
So the only difference here in this lot, because notice in the example you're giving us, that person could do exactly the same thing by moving that little blue line back another 90 feet.
Correct.
And it would make no difference in that configuration. It would be the same result in that particular usage.
That's correct. Although it
But why,
depends. I mean,
so why wouldn't they have done that? I mean, they didn't do it because it wasn't required. But that panhandle lot includes all of the area you're talking about, so they could have complied with the current regulations, or were they different?
right. And
But there are some places that couldn't, I'll bet.
correct. But if they, sir, if they wanted to use this, they would be able to build a house. Would be a very big house, but if the potential could be the opposite. So this would be obviously you can't build a house back there, but if this were here and this now met the 50-foot front yard setback with 50 feet additional, if they wanted to put their residence in that section, it would be a buildable. Wouldn't be desirable.
But you
it would be
understand,
desirable.
our rules right now do not prohibit them from doing that.
That's correct.
What we're now prohibiting is what is currently there.
Yes.
But if we had the rules you're now suggesting, in that particular instance, they could do the same thing. So which that brings me back to, how big of a problem is this?
We see it very, very often. I mean, in the last,
So people must be doing this for some reason. That is not a good example of it, because they could comply with the new regulations and it wouldn't make a difference. But for some reason, people are doing this and I don't understand why. So I'm supposing that there are times when that panhandle lot doesn't have the ability to do what we're saying, correct? That must be why they're not doing it all the time, because they're doing this strange little maneuver, and you're trying to avoid them from doing it because you don't like this, or because it's difficult to track, or what is it?
well, the reason that they did this is because it avoids the stacked panhandle,
Which means what?
which means that in the code, and that's one of these next amendments, is that we define a stacked panhandle. So the question always remains, well, I want to split my lot, but in the code currently, we have that you can't stack panhandles. We don't have any diagrams that show that,
What is a stacked panhandle?
okay?
Does that mean you've got multiple lots?
Yep, so we're jumping ahead, but this is a stacked panhandle. So these are new pictures that are gonna go into zoning code that when people have a question, for instance, this is a panhandle, and this is a panhandle, this is the street, so this is prohibited. That's a pretty clear cut stacked panhandle. This one, is another clear cut panhandle, frontage lot, this one's stacked.
Okay, I understand the concept.
Now
If it wasn't stacked, if the panhandle just had one lot behind it, is that gonna be okay?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, all right, I get it.
So, but doesn't that minimum lot size come into play, that it needs to be a
1.25 for RU, yes, sir. That always will remain in effect.
And oh, by the way, let me ask another question about stacked panhandles. Since the people who would be going in there, presumably, they know it's a stacked panhandle, but let's take the one closest to the street being number one, he's not panhandle at all. But the guy behind him's a panhandle, the guy behind him is a panhandle, and everybody knows in that configuration what's going on, right? What's our objection to that?
Well, it's gonna be a life safety issue, because when you stack multiple panhandles, and you got a first responder coming, and you got multiple addresses, you don't know where to go.
Yeah, but if you go back to that, the blue
Yes.
lot,
Mhm.
the road isn't in the panhandle. There's a shared drive, so it's.
Correct.
So that's servicing all of those homes. I mean, I just don't understand why I care about if they are still satisfying the lot size minimum and what they can build on that. I mean, the address presumably feeds into this roadway that's serving, all of these homes. So I don't understand.
We were
They're not
just-
gonna zoom up the panhandle anyway. There's no road there. It's literally a lot line.
And the objective here was to try to establish a standard that we can advise the citizens of Warren County when they come in, because in the most recent case that I can remember, a young lady came in and had a panhandle. And she's got a panhandle lot and a landlocked parcel. She wanted to give that landlocked parcel frontage. Well, she can't use another panhandle, so she came in and she said, how can I give this landlocked parcel road frontage? And the standard is, it's over 2 acres, so we have to come up with 200 feet of road frontage on 22 and 3 in Washington Township. So she said, well, how much do I have to buy from my neighbor? And we don't have a standard for that, right? So we're like, well,
Okay, well, I get where you're going.
yes.
But, so for the public to understand this, in that particular case, that was a one parcel piece of property, right? That wasn't 2 parcels, that was 1 parcel. Because you can never have a piece of property that doesn't have road frontage. You
No.
can't have landlocked property.
That's not correct.
Is that not, maybe, I've
We have
always thought.
lots of landlocked parcels.
Okay, but you can't build on a landlocked parcel.
That's correct.
That is correct.
So you can have different parcels, I agree, but the whole point here is when she wanted to build, it can't be landlocked. You've got to have road frontage because you have to have access to something that you build on. So my point with that is, how do we solve this problem? Because my basic feeling about most of these things is, if we've been doing it one way for a long, long time, there's an inertia where, why do I need to change it? And I'm very willing to approve all of this stuff to go for a review, because ultimately what I want to know is, what are the people who are actually doing these developments, building these lots, you know, putting in this stuff, what's their opinion? And if they come in and they say, oh, we're coolio with all this, we're okay, I'm gonna say, oh, okay, great. Because I'm not the expert on building, I'm not the expert on developing, I'm not the expert on putting plats in, I'm not the expert on building homes. So I'm gonna wanna hear from them. But my basic function here, since we've got a pre-function, is I have to understand what the problem is.
Sure, I understand.
And
Yeah,
so,
because, and that goes to the density question that I was trying to unpack, that essentially if you have 10 acres and there's 1.25 acres, you can only put 8 lots on something anyway, correct?
Well, I mean, it goes to the density for that zone. For instance, in RU, you have to have 10 acres, and it's 1 per 5. That's so you could split that 10 acres twice and have 2 residential homes on it. And each different zone breaks it down 1 per 3, 1 per 2.
And does this frontage issue allow any additional density, or
No.
people trying?
No, it
I
does
mean,
not.
so it's really coming about when you have people who own a lot of property, they have their home on there, and then they wanna sell off some of their property to, you know, could be somebody they know or somebody they don't know, to build a secondary home. But in order to do that, they need frontage, and so they create these panhandle lots.
Yes, ma'am.
And so, you know, I guess I'm a Tom where it's like, okay, it makes sense for people to go and sort of figure this out, but as I'm sitting here, I'm like, I don't see what the problem is in the way, I mean, I understand what you're saying is we need a standard. What I'm hearing though is, there's this, and then we're gonna add more to it, and I get that there isn't a standard, and so I don't quite ascertain why we're making them buy more property
Sure.
down on I mean, I understand the plain words you're using, but I don't understand why we care. Because it's not changing density, it's enabling families that have a lot of land where their home is located to sell off a lot so that somebody else can build a home there, maybe a family member. It's probably a high probability there's a family member that they want to access another lot that they can't do.
Sure.
They can't do otherwise, because then it becomes, I guess, an ADU or some other
Secondary dwelling, yes.
something, and that's not what they want. They want them to have their own distinct lot.
the other thing, when these things come up, that I usually ask is, what's done in other jurisdictions? Is what you're recommending the standard of zoning outside of Warren County?
But what I've been able to see is they all have standards for width and depth for lots.
So my question is this, is what you're suggesting the standard that's used? I understand you're saying that other people have some standards, but is what the amendment you're suggesting an amendment or consistent with the zoning in other counties?
I can't speak for that. The only thing I can say is that the standard that we tried to modify and input is the setback plus 50.
Okay, and so when, because I'm going to approve all this stuff, but what I'm gonna be asking the developers is, does this surprise you, and are you meeting this in your other jurisdictions you build in? Because if they come in and they say, this is a problem, and it's a problem for people that's got existing lots like this, and now you're gonna do something within this one, it wouldn't make a bit of difference, because they can meet it. But there could be people I could see that say, whoa, Nellie, now I gotta buy a whole bunch of stuff. You gave us the example of some person, and she's saying, how do I do this? And if it were the new regulations, it might be way more difficult for her to do it.
Bruce, since you were in the middle of this, what is your layman's point? What are we trying to fix?
We're trying to continue to be able to review applications to determine whether something is a stacked panhandle or not. We're trying to fix the amount of frontage required so that our emergency services can identify locations, can access locations. A lot of times, and I think Commissioner Jones is the one that hit on it, and that is, this is just on paper. You know, there's already something there, and often they just create it on paper, and they don't use that, what I call the pole of the flag for actual access. It's just for purposes of being able to create a lot where they could sell it off to someone else.
I mean, I totally appreciate needing to have a standard. I totally appreciate how this may become more and more common as you have less and less farmland and people, the value of property is going up, and you don't want to landlock property. You know, I want people to be able to have as much freedom with their own property
Sure.
as possible, while, you know, maintaining appropriate for rural community is what that zoning and density is. And so,
And this will only apply to the residential, the individuals, okay? So if this is a developer, well, they'd come in and do a PUD and set their own standards.
Yeah.
So this is, it's you, it's me, that has a piece of landlocked property that comes in to say, okay, I would really like to give my landlocked parcel frontage. How and what do I need to do?
Yeah.
We would go right to the chart and we would say, okay, so here's what you would need to obtain from your neighbor, or split it off so that you can do this. That's the only.
But you see, I would rather give them, I agree entirely with Commissioner Jones, that I want to give the private property owner, to the extent they're able to develop their property in a way that's consistent with our density, consistent with the current zoning, consistent with the neighbor's interests, and not make them buy more than the 200 feet. There is a standard now. And it isn't that it's impossible for you. If there was no standard at all, you wouldn't be able to answer that woman's question of how much property do I have to buy to satisfy this, to put another lot in that's currently landlocked. Are you telling me that the example you gave to us, where the woman says, I want to take this parcel, I want to make it buildable, I need road frontage, and they come into you and you say, I don't know what to tell you.
No, what I currently tell them is, you can do it, you need to have 200 feet of
Okay,
road frontage,
but
that's it.
if this were the rule,
Yep,
you'd say, you don't have to, you gotta buy 200 feet and 100 feet back. You gotta buy a heck of a lot more property. And they're gonna say, yippee, they're gonna say, that's a lot more expensive.
sure.
And why am I telling them that? And that's my problem with this.
thank you.
Okay, that's, understand. And we'll move on to number 7. The terminus of a
Thank
dead-end
you.
roadway constitute frontage if the property lot line is within 50 feet of the paved surface of a public road or street. Now, this one, here's a diagram of what we're saying. Another issue that we have is that the definition of frontage has to abut an improved surface, so a paved road. What we run into is a dead-end road where the paved surface terminates back here. These people that own this lot have frontage here to here, but because they don't touch the road right away, that is not considered frontage. So what we're proposing is that we institute this 50-foot standard so that if the road terminates before their property, we could do a 50-foot radius, and anything within that that touches that would be considered frontage. So that would go towards and be a benefit of the landowners in Warren County.
Okay, I like that.
In our 5 jurisdictions.
I'm all cool with that, thank you.
Here we go to the, here we go to the panhandles. And once again, we have the definition of a panhandle, a stacked panhandle, but here we've gone one step further. Panhandle lots shall not be stacked one behind another in relation to a road or street. Neither the body nor the handle of the panhandle lot shall extend beyond any portion of an adjacent panhandle lot. We're gonna add these next diagrams that we've already seen,
So you're just prohibiting stacked panhandles,
which we already do that.
okay?
Now we're putting an aid in the Warren County Rural Zoning Code that shows pictures, because everybody likes pictures, so that when they have access to this online, they come in, we can say, okay, so here.
So this is just adding diagrams to a current rule.
That's correct, to
Oh, I'm
help,
okay with that
to
too.
help the people out.
Okay,
Secondary dwelling units, you'll love this one as well. So currently, people ask us all the time, I wanna put a secondary dwelling unit on my property, but the Warren County limits the number of residential accessory structures. This simply says, number 7, a detached secondary dwelling unit shall not be included in the maximum number of detached accessory structures or buildings referenced in the chart. So in RU, you can have 3 structures over 200 square feet, and you can have 1 under, for a total of 4 exterior buildings. Secondary dwelling units, although we don't count it, now we specifically say they can read it, we don't include it in the number of residential accessory.
So this is just giving them more freedom.
And putting it in the code so they can read it and say, they know the
Yeah,
answer
yeah,
before they
yeah.
ask.
Great, perfect.
Subdivision perimeter buffer requirements, this is something that Turtle Creek Township initiated, brought to our attention. So what we would do is on the left, under Article 3, Chapter 4, are the current subdivision standards. It applies to R1, R1A, and R1B, and it applies only to collector and arterial roadways. What we would change would be applied to all residential zoning districts, and it would apply to all public roadways. So a local road, if you want to do a major subdivision on a local road, this would apply to you. And then it gives them different buffer options. So now we're talking about the preservation of the rural environment, and option 1 is buffers greater than 100 feet in width would be required less trees, because the buffer's greater. Option 2, buffers less than or equal to 100 feet would require more trees. And then the berm option, if you want to take option 1 or option 2 and put a berm in, obviously that's going to add to the functionality of the buffer, so that would require less trees. And those are the options that you'd be able to do under.
What does less trees or more trees mean?
It means that the wider the buffer,
No, I get that, but I understand that
I
concept.
think it goes.
I understand
after-
that, but if that's the actual language you use,
No, this is the code is in the additional slides, and it goes.
Spells it out.
It spells it
all
out. Oh,
This is
okay.
just a reader's.
okay, oh,
Cliff Notes.
I'm okay with
He's
that too.
just dumbing it down for us.
Okay, great, yeah.
More
we
trees
could-
is less trees.
That's what I'm saying, is I wouldn't know what that means. Does the trees have to have a certain number of branches and leaves too? Okay, go ahead.
Something like that.
So the next and final one is the lot width. What we are gonna add is another diagram to the zoning code, and that illustrates how lot width is measured for a lot on a cul-de-sac or curved street right away. So it's pretty simple. You take your minimum setback requirements, you draw a line on each side of the property line, straight across, and then that's where you determine.
But this isn't changing anything, it's just adding a
Just
diagram.
showing the
Okay.
layman and the
Every time you want to
developers
add a diagram to something that's consistent with our current zoning, I'm gonna be okay with it.
Roger that. And that is it. This is the dreaded slide that talked about the.
Yeah, I don't like that.
This is a real life version of the dead end.
Yep,
So in this instance.
We get it, that one's all right.
Okay.
yep, you bet.
And that's the chart. That's all I got.
I'm okay with that, except for the first one, we.
For number
we get that.
6 is problematic.
Yep,
That's fine.
okay, good,
That's fine.
go do
Any
your
questions
thing.
of me?
Nope,
Thank you for your time.
thank you.
Jonathan, you got any questions on this, since you're here?
Since we're doing what you asked us to do.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate that, John Stamp, Store Creek Township trustee. The big one to us is the buffers, as we are developing. We get to do this once. City of Mason has done a great job buffering, Springborough's done a great job of buffering. We don't wanna be behind on that, and mounds are actually more important to us than the trees, but trees are fine too. And so that's really where we are on it. The rest of it, you know, I defer to your consideration.
Our
of those
wisdom
things.
here.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right.
Do you have an example of something that got developed, you don't like it because that wasn't part of the code?
Yeah, so the one that really stings me right now, though, that may not be implicated here is the zoo property. It has a lot of solar panels out there on Hamilton Road. We had discussions, we had what I felt was an understanding of what would be there. And the buffer is not there. It's a beautiful.
I thought they agreed to a buffer.
I thought they did too, but there's not one there right now.
Wait.
They did.
Okay, well then, is that an enforcement issue?
I think there's been some communication with them. Ray could brief you on that.
We have some upcoming meetings with them too.
All right.
But it's an issue. Beyond that, however, so I'll take a step back. I didn't want to waste your time with too much information. So we have a lot of things that are going on, some of which are not addressed here potentially, but we have gas stations coming in, we have subdivisions coming in, we have other developments such as the solar panels coming in. We want to be able to have a quality community. We want to preserve property values. We don't want just people coming in and exploiting a momentary thing. They don't live here. We want it to be good for our residents. Buffering is one of the ways that we think that we can do that.
Well, we've dealt with that today.
You dealt.
But if we're gonna make other changes, Jonathan, that you suggest, we've gotta go through the process of having something very specific in order to authorize it in this pre-authorization process.
That's correct, and that's actually one of my questions. As we progress through this, Bruce and Ray, if we see revisions that need to be made to the propositions, can those revisions be made through the process and then the final approval before the commissioners?
Yeah,
as we
zoning
proceed?
commission can make a recommendation and it can deviate from what's initiated.
Okay, this is a general informative session to initiate the
This is to start
process.
the process.
Yeah, and so I hope to be able to address some of those issues as we go through this entire process.
Yep. You bet.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Once again, Commissioners, if you choose, we would request that you initiate the zoning text amendments with exception to the residential zoning standards, paragraph 6.
So can I have a motion on that?
Do we have a resolution?
Yep, I've got a resolution initiating text amendments to the Warren County Rural Zoning Code,
With the
exception of
number
the
6.
residential zoning standards.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Grossman?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Okay, is that it for our agenda?
Ray, slow start, but you got into the rhythm.
It's a good job.
Way to stick with it.
I really appreciate your sense of humor too, by the way. All right, so we're at the time where I think you would like to talk to us. So all you have to do is come up and state your name and your address, and this is the public comment portion of our meeting.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you.
My name's John Fauner, live at 1221 Turfway Court here in Lebanon. As Martin will appreciate, I was actually kind of geeking out on that stuff, given my past history of zoning issues before this body and many others. I've got a couple questions about things that are happening in our state, in our county, in our country. First of which is really a follow-up on our last discussion of a couple months ago, before the big beautiful bill was passed. I came and asked during the negotiations, early negotiations of that, if the county was making any contingency plans for cuts in Medicare and veteran services that were being proposed and discussed. Well, those are fact now, and I suspect at your dismay, they are fact in addition to, and this was part of our discussion as well, the over $1 trillion increase in our future debt. And so I'm here to ask if, now that the big beautiful bill is passed at a federal level, if you are making plans, arrangements for the loss of services that will affect Warren County residents, in particular to Medicaid and veteran services. So that's a question, if there's any discussion underway about those pending losses.
Well, I would just speak a little bit about Medicaid. So, you know, we have to wait. We are county administered, but state sponsored.
Mhm.
So until the state, you know, figures out what its policy is going to be, there isn't any cuts at this juncture to the Medicaid program. So we look for eligibility on behalf of the state, but we don't set the policy around it. So that's really up to the state legislature to determine. And so we're one of only 10 states that is you know, state governed but county administered. So there just isn't anything. I think one of the issues that I'm paying attention to is the SNAP issue, because the way that the bill is contemplating reductions to SNAP at this juncture is largely not in benefits, it's around administrative costs. And so, based on our error rates, and our error rates are fairly high, not in this county necessarily, but statewide. And so, again, we have to wait from the state standpoint about who's going to absorb those costs. I mean, our hope is that, you know, we aren't bearing the burden of increased administrative costs on that. And so that's just, we're beholden to the state, since we are a function of what their policy is going to be, and that remains to be seen. And there's a couple of years before this actually goes into effect. So it's something that I'm personally paying attention to.
I appreciate that.
Quite a bit. I just don't think we're at a point yet to kind of know what, if anything, we would need to do here, and what the state will require us to do.
But to reiterate the position all three of you took at the last meeting, you'll advocate on behalf of the disadvantaged, to use a broad generalization, residents of the county to help preserve what's possible.
Yeah, I mean,
for the benefits.
Speaking for myself, I think we want to preserve, or I want to preserve, safety net services for those who need it. I think what the Congress and the state is attempting to do is to ensure that those who are able-bodied and can work are indeed doing that. And so I think both of those values, you know, should come together. Where I personally see my advocacy being is around children, oftentimes, are unintended consequences of the policy. And I just want to make sure that children maintain, whether it's CHIP coverage or Medicaid coverage or some combination thereof, that they don't fall through the cracks. And so that's really where you know, my focus has been, is ensuring that. But I think there's two issues that those who are truly indigent, disabled, aged, blind, get access to safety net benefits. And then those who can work, that we're doing what we can to ensure that they're connected to employment. So we spend a lot of time with our Ohio Means Jobs Board in looking at creative ways to connect people, whether they're youth or older people, to jobs so that they can provide for themselves.
I can share two personal examples, family examples. I'm a Warren County resident. The two families I'm going to talk about are not. One's in Columbus, the other's in Cleveland. My nephew, disabled Marine veteran, both the Afghanistan and Iraq wars, is fully employed, has 5 kids, and believes with some certainty that the Medicaid health insurance for his children is going to be cut. He's fully employed, making a decent salary, but still with 5 kids falls below the previous thresholds of what that would enable his kids. So he's going to have a severe financial impact on his family.
Did you say he believes that's the case?
Well,
The
as
standards that
Commissioner
current-
Jones just pointed out, all the rules haven't been figured out how the state's going to
Oh, right, so
administer.
he doesn't really
He
know.
he has reason to believe.
Okay, but see, the point is, we're not here today to opine on hypotheticals.
Okay.
That's what we're being.
I understand that. I was going to
So we
share a
don't-
couple of
When
examples.
we know what the rules are, we know the impact, when we understand that, there may be something for us to talk about. But right now, you know, where we don't completely know how this is gonna work.
I'd like to share my fears as a citizen with you as commissioners, so when the issue does come out, you can say, hey, there was a citizen before me who expressed concerns, so I want to weigh those in how I react.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a nephew and my child who lives in Cleveland, who is holding down 2 jobs currently, working 60 hours a week, is likely to, they're on the exchange for health insurance, and those costs are likely to increase significantly, wiping out the pay increase that they got by being promoted to a manager within the small company that they work with that doesn't provide health insurance. So you have a citizen with 2 family members.
In Cleveland.
I have one in Cleveland, one in Columbus, who are going to be impacted.
And you're going.
Potentially.
I think, who are likely to be impacted.
And you're telling us that maybe there are people that you don't know that could have the same impact in Warren County.
I'm confident there
Okay,
are.
well, hang in there. And therefore, you want us to go to our federal representatives to alert them to this potential problem.
When you've already said you're not going to be proactive, you're going to wait until you know what the state's going to do. When that time comes, I hope you react with a tangible example of the kind of people who might be impacted.
Okay.
It's easy to say, make able-bodied people go to work. All the statistics that I've seen is that there are very few of those, because those people have already gone back to work through changes in these programs dating back to the Clinton administration.
Okay.
So when the time comes, because you choose to be reactive instead of proactive,
But
that-
we're not choosing that.
if
That's
you,
the way the system actually works.
to be proactive,
We
you would-
administer what the state sets up, so
to be
nothing has
politically
changed.
proactive,
Nothing
I'm
has
sure that you
changed
have
from the state.
discussions with state officials.
Yeah, we do that all the time.
Right, and
Nothing
so-
has changed from the state, there's not even an active discussion about it, because it's
I
not
ac-
yet been promulgated at the federal level to determine what that is. So I totally hear you, as I did the last time
Mm-hmm.
around. I understand your concern, I share some of those concerns, and I can assure you that I'll be mindful of that.
Thank you.
As we're required to implement the policy when it comes, and I've shared that I have a particular interest in young children to ensure that they remain covered. But it's not,
Uh,
the word choice, you know, I think is communicating something that's just not actually happening. I don't think we have an active choice because we merely administer on behalf of the state, and the state has not even begun to understand and entertain rulemaking around the changes at the federal level. So whether it be Medicaid or SNAP or, you know, anything else. So look, I'm unified with you behind the common purpose that we want to ensure that people who need the benefits, for which the benefits are specified, get access to the benefits, and that where we can be improving the system because our error rate is so high, for example, we should be doing that on behalf of the taxpayers who are paying for the benefits.
And I echo Commissioner Jones has led our efforts on this. I 100% agree with her. I actually have to go here in a minute or two, but I wanted to say our board, not understanding where you're coming from, has actually shown a heart for the working poor in particular.
I have, because of your time constraints, this is really more urgent, and I'd like to know if there are any conversations, negotiations, either by you or by the sheriff's office, to allow ICE to have operations in cooperation with the Warren County Sheriff's Office or shared facilities or something. Any conversations that are underway, that are pending, that are coming, and if possible, your opinions about whether ICE should have operations in Warren County comparable to Butler County.
I'm just not aware of any conversations.
And Sheriff Riley has addressed that topic.
But in a publicly available.
Yeah, he's addressed it publicly.
Okay, all right. The third issue, which also directly accounts the county, is whether the President has just issued an executive order worried about fraud in mail-in voting and plans to eliminate it, hopes to eliminate it federally. I'd like to know if there have been any issues of significance that would alter outcomes that have been observed with mail-in voting in Warren County.
I'm not aware of any, but you'd have to talk to the Board of Elections. But,
Yeah, I mean-
but they have validated the election in the county, and I'm not aware of any problems, nor am I aware of any conversations here.
They've been vigilant with regard to potential fraud. There has been cases of attempts to register people that are false, that aren't properly registered, or where they try to register for people that they are not.
Sure.
But I don't know of anything that would have risen to the level of affecting the outcome of an election.
And have they been specific to mail-in voting?
Yeah, there's been mail-in voting issues.
Okay.
But because once you register falsely for someone,
Fair enough.
you can then vote, including through the mail.
Sure.
Okay, but again, I don't, our Board of Elections is very careful.
My impression
They do a
too.
very good job to root out fraud, and where fraud exists, to prosecute it.
Yeah.
And there have been instances where that has occurred, where people
Sure.
have voted that they should not have voted. They've tried to register names that they're not, or with people that they're not, or people that no longer live in the county, but they try to use their identity. That's all occurred. But it's
Everywhere, I
not
have no
reason-
doubt, but not to the level.
No, not to the
No.
level that it would change an election.
Right. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Commissioner Young. Hope you make it to your appointment on time, and look forward to our next conversation.
Speaking to the Warren County Leadership Class here in 23 minutes. So.
Good for you.
All right,
Thank you
so
very much.
Thank you.
Take care, bye-bye. Okay, anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
And yes.
Yes, thank you.
Were you meeting on that?